On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, is the NBA Cup working? How have the Thunder managed this stretch, and how much longer will they have to do this? We'll talk about it all on today's show.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. On today's show, brought to you by Prize Picks. You can go right now, download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly whenever you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed at Prize Picks. Run your game. We're joined by Michael Martin at Michael on Sports on Twitter. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube to discuss the Thunder still being shorthanded, the NBA Cup, which resumes tonight in San Antonio, and a lot more. Michael, how you feeling the day after yet another PJ Washington game?
Some flashbacks I'd rather not remember. There's good deja vu, and then there's what happened the other night. I was hoping it was one of those things like where Brandon Ingram got hot and had 10 points in the first quarter and then just stopped. PJ Washington did not stop.
He did not stop. And I think that I wrote about this for Thunder on SI. I think that because of what happened in the postseason, the frustration, of course, is mounting, especially within the fan base. But when you go back and really look at his night, he had 2 open shots the entire night. So it wasn't the same as the playoffs where they were just ignoring him and hoping that he would shoot to his regular rhythms, as he did against Boston in the finals and as he did for the entire season for Dallas. They really did make adjustments. It's just that one of the open shots was a transition 3, which I think if you were going to sign up for a transition 3 from anybody, it would be PJ Washington, who's shooting 27% from 3. Another open shot was because you had a double Lively at the elbow. He kicked it out to PJ. But past that, he worked Wiggins twice in the post, and that's just, you got the better of Wiggins. That's going to happen sometimes. He had a missed layup in traffic that he put back, which is just a unreal athletic play from PJ, but not something that you can really shake your fist at from Oklahoma City. And he was just able to hit this floater at the elbow as a tap back rebound came out to him and the shot clock expired. And he had 10 points at the free throw line. So I think that you can look at the final box score and see he had 27 and 17 and how loud it was. But when you really go break it down, it wasn't so much as the Thunder as so much as PJ Washington just had it going, in the sense of he was in the right place at the right time and he made some pretty good moves.
Yeah, he was having some good flashbacks. I mean, you've seen this from other players playing against the Thunder who have had a track record of playing well, like your Andrew Wiggins, your LaMarcus Aldridges of the world. And I think PJ was just sort of in that zone. Like you mentioned, he wasn't just killing it, making a bunch of crazy shots, but he was just systematically just making one shot after another. And credit to him, it felt less like bad defense by the Thunder and more just good shot making by him.
And it was pretty impressive that the Thunder, again, they did make the adjustments. They didn't just simply ignore him. He had 2 open shots the entire time, and then he did have this sidestep that he missed where you can kind of describe it as open, but the sidestep didn't create that much space, so 2.5 open shots the entire time. But whenever you get fed 10 points off free throws, it's of course going to inflate your numbers. And to that point, if you get to the line 10 times, I know that the whistle has been a big deal in Oklahoma City. You can't foul if you're not around someone. So clearly he was being defended. He just got fouled and went to the line for 10 free throw attempts. So the Thunder were defending PJ Washington. I think that sometimes when you're lost in the emotion of the game, you can just think, how are the Thunder not reacting and responding and adjusting to PJ Washington? This was a much different game, but a same result for him. But that was their lone loss of the week without Chet Holmgren. I don't know about you, Michael, but I think that this week was the perfect week. Whenever, if I told you last Sunday when Chet went out and he was going to miss a significant portion of the regular season, that they would lose one game all week, I think we'd all sign up for that happily.
Absolutely. I think part of it is just the way that we're looking back on it in terms of like the Clippers loss or the Clippers win. If they had lost that game and won this game, I think the fans would be looking at it very, very differently. But it's just that it happened to be this game in particular and just how frustrating it was. But getting out of this with only losing one game without Chet other than the Warriors game, I think is an absolute win.
Yeah, it's a big win. I think that whenever you look at the weekend, especially to go 1-1 against the Suns and Mavericks was big. And not only 1-1, I mean, they dominated the Suns and really kept them in check. And they still had Jusuf Nurkic, which what I thought was going to be a big deal when it was announced pregame that he'd be in the lineup. It ended up being a non-factor. It's just that Dallas is a unique matchup. And I said this on yesterday's show. I mean, you have to see that they can combat the Thunder unlike most teams because they don't turn the ball over a ton, and 16 turnovers is nothing that they're proud of, but it's not the 20-plus turnover mark that the Thunder are used to getting. And Jason Kidd is not going to try to go small, and that's where other teams get in trouble. You cannot out-small ball the Thunder. He's going to keep his bigs on the floor and eventually break through, which they did in that game. So credit to Dallas. It was a kind of a bad night from OKC from that standpoint, but it really, more so than a bad night, a bad matchup, and you didn't really have any role players shoot out of their skis or kind of have a massive game besides Dylan Jones, who only had 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was an irritating way to lose, but it's just one of those games where I feel like Presti made the point a few years ago about there's about 4 times a year that it feels like the sky's falling. Similarly, I feel that there's like 3 or 4 games on either side where it's just not your night. You're probably not going to win. And I felt like that was one of those nights. And then there are other nights where it's just everything's clicking for your team, or it's one of those off nights for the other teams and you're sort of destined to win. This just felt like one of those games that just unfortunately went the wrong way. But in the long scheme of things, I don't think it'll be a massive deal.
Yeah, and I think that it's just kind of overblown, as you mentioned, because it's the bookend of the week, and that's kind of the note you left on. But for all of the morning, frustrating, venting sessions going on, the Thunder lost by 2 in a game that, frankly, had no business even being in the contest of that game. But the NBA Cup does resume tonight. We do have the official injury report, which will be updated hourly. So mind you in the comments if something has changed, that's why. But on the initial report, Victor Wembanyama is downgraded to doubtful. He started the day as questionable. Now he's doubtful. What does this game look like to you if Victor does or does not play? Because for me, it doesn't change much, as crazy as that sounds.
I don't think that's crazy. If he does play, I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic, but the Thunder do have 2 guys in Kenrich Williams and J-Dub who have had some success guarding him. With that being said, that's usually with Chet on the backside, and I think it's more that they want Chet back there than they think that Dub and Kenrich are just the best guys to guard Wemby, but that's point's kind of moot for now. With him playing, I think that they can sort of push him out on the perimeter offensively, but where I would have some fear is just with him rim running, catching lobs, and sort of on the glass. But other than that, I think it's a decent matchup for the Thunder with or without him playing, just because of the rest of the roster and sort of the talent gap from the Thunder to them, even with those injuries that OKC has.
And in terms of winning this game, you'd of course prefer Victor not out there than have him out there.
Yeah.
But they routinely defend him with J-Dub anyway. Mm-hmm. And the recipe for slowing down Victor has been, which it is what it is for typical guys of his stature. Even Chet struggles with this a little bit. Kevin Durant struggles with this a little bit, is having guys underneath him and playing up under him with that leverage that J-Dub has, that Kenrich has, and that Caruso has, who is now available. He's not listed on the injury report. So you have so many bodies to throw at Victor that I think that it's a more fun game if he plays. I think that changes. I think it's a more interesting game, but I still think the Thunder have a really good chance of winning with or without him on the court. Obviously, your percentages, though, go up a bit with him not there, being that he's their best player and the only player capable of knocking down 6 threes in a given night, as he did this past week. So we'll see what Victor looks like. But when you're doubtful already, and you're having a knee injury in particular, he has a knee contusion, that really does not sound good for his activation status. So you could be looking at a national TV game with no Chet, no Victor, no Jeremy Sohan for what that's worth. The Thunder list, Hartenstein is still out. Chet is out, of course. Isaiah Joe is out with a calf contusion, which Mark revealed post-game on Sunday that he had a contusion. We now find out it's in the calf. Topic, of course, is out, and Jay Will, of course, is out. But Caruso is back, and they have this weird stretch of their schedule where they're going to play San Antonio today in the NBA Cup. They'll play Portland on Wednesday at home, and then they have 5 days off. We're going to talk about the NBA Cup. We're going to talk about that stretch all coming up. But first, I want to say right now, but good friends over at Prize Picks, go check out Prize Picks today because it's a lot of fun, and you can do it in Oklahoma. You can now win 100 times your money in Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action on sports in over 30 states, again, including Oklahoma. You can go check them out today. All you got to do is pick 2 to 6 players and project will they have more or less than their stat line projections. For example, if you think Steph Curry will have more than 4 3-pointers in his next game, you can go hit the more button and you'll win if it's right and you'll lose if it's wrong. So you can do that for the Thunder and Spurs game tonight. They'll have SGA point totals. They'll have J-Dub rebound totals. They'll have everything for you over there at Prize Picks. It's a ton of fun. Go download the app today. Create your account using code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Go there right now and download their app and use that code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $50 win or lose on your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Talking to Michael Martin at Michael on Sports on Twitter. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. First and foremost, tonight will be interesting because the course will be different. The stakes will be doubled, like the daily double version of Family Feud. Is the NBA Cup working? Has this really grabbed you at all, or can you just kind of take it or leave it?
I would say I'm on the more positive end of it, but there's definitely still some skepticism. I think we're still early on, but I think it's a good idea so far, just in theory, just because the NBA calendar definitely felt super empty from opening night basically through Christmas, if not through the All-Star break, and having something in there to make some of these fall NBA matchups feel a little bit more important has been nice. And I don't know if it's just a psychological thing with the different uniforms and the different courts, but it feels like there is more juice. I mean, I know that there's definitely some venom between the Mavericks and the Thunder fans, but the other night, Rylan, as far as I'm concerned, that felt like one of the more loud environments we've had this regular season, and I think some of that has to be due in part to the NBA Cup. I think that there is some weird stuff going on with the Cup in terms of, like, they're putting a lot of assets into that where they could be putting into the finals, where maybe they have the decal in there, where they don't do that, but then they can do a whole different court for the Cup. But I'm excited to see what this looks like in the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, we already had some pretty big changes going from the in-season tournament to the NBA Cup in just 1 year.
Yeah, I think that this is it's a great thing to me because it doesn't hurt anyone, and if it helps anyone get into basketball, especially if it helps change that mindset of many casual NBA fans wouldn't even touch the league until Christmas Day, back whenever Christmas Day was the NBA holiday. Now the NFL has kind of infringed on that. But if it helps change that mindset at all, that's great for the league. And so I just think that if you don't care about it and you don't want to pay attention to it, you don't have to. These games count the same as they did 5 years ago, as they did 20 years ago. It's the same game in terms of it counting in the regular season. There's just this additional portion of it that you can either take or leave up to your jurisdiction of what you want to do with that in your own mind. I personally love it. Mark talked about how the games feel more intense on the court and how it's a good experience to really ramp things up. And for a young team, I know that people are tired of hearing about how young the Thunder are. They're still the youngest team in the NBA with only one playoff run under their belt. So if these games at all get additional juice than a Tuesday night in January, that's great for this Thunder team to kind of have that experience, especially now whenever you're going to have that experience and whatever level of intensity changes, you're going to have that with different guys who wouldn't otherwise have high-level minutes, and then that can kind of prepare them for if they're called on in the postseason.
Yeah, I feel similarly. It's going to help ease guys in, like AJ Mitchell, who I think we both think is going to be part of the rotation long-term, maybe into the playoffs. Who knows? Mark likes to play a lot of guys, but you never know. But the Cup is definitely interesting, and it's fun. I remember talking about this last year, maybe with you, about I thought it was really, really important about who won the Cup and who was in the finals in terms of how meaningful it would be and how that team did in the playoffs. The Lakers obviously were the first round and out, but the Pacers made it all the way to the conference finals. So I think once again, if we see something like it's the Thunder and they make the finals in both, or it's the Celtics and they win the Cup and go to the finals again, we're going to see a little bit more prestige and shine on the Cup rather than it just looking like something some of these teams like the Kings or the Bulls, these regular season, I guess, superheroes and overachievers really go for. I think that's going to mean a lot.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about the Cup is the discourse around the people who just crap on the Cup.
Yeah.
There's just no reason to. If you don't like the NBA Cup, just ignore it and go about your day and still watch the game the way you did all those years ago. The only thing I am still skeptical about with the NBA Cup, as much as I am an NBA Cup homer, I love the Cup. The Vegas destination is really cool for the players. It's cool for everyone involved that gets to go to Vegas. But last year was a special recipe where you had the Lakers in it. Did the Lakers win it? And so both dates in Vegas were packed because, Vegas is a Lakers stronghold. If you get the Thunder in that NBA Cup and some Middle America team like the Cavs, what does the participation from the crowd look like? What does the energy in the crowd look like? I'm not really sure how you can solve that. Perhaps you can do something with season ticket holders to where if your team makes the cup, you're entered to have like a reduced price, or the team themselves will just get you out to the game and like have that be a fun little wrinkle. But they have to do something to ensure that the place is full, and the place is full with passionate fans, not just people in Vegas who want to go see an NBA game, like people who want to make the environment as electric as it is during these cup games, where you saw the Paycom Center have its best life to it on Friday from the whole season. You're going to see San Antonio have its best life today. You need those kind of fans who really care to make it feel ultra special. And I'm not sure that Vegas can do that without the Lakers there. So we're just going to have to monitor that and kind of see how they can tweak it. But I'm really skeptical on only that part of the NBA Cup.
Yeah, I think the NBA is pretty obviously investing into Vegas as they're looking towards expansion the next few years. I think Bill Simmons on his pod brought up a good point, or one of his guests did. I'd like to see it in Madison Square Garden. I'm not one of those people that says like that's the mecca of basketball. But the reality is you have more people than basically anywhere else in the country who really, really enjoy good basketball and are going to cheer on good basketball. I mean, that's why so many players love playing in New York, is because the Knicks fans recognize no matter what jersey you're wearing that guys are playing well. So I think that could be a fun environment. And also it's one of those places where you're going to have a very diverse crowd. So you can have fans from pretty much anywhere. I mean, it's going to be dominated by some of the big market teams, but I think that's more realistic than Vegas, and probably a more realistic trip for a lot of people if they end up even being able to go.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I am a Mecca truther for Madison Square Garden. And I just think that you look at even just a Thunder example of when this team was winning 20-something games, they routinely played their best in Madison Square Garden the one time a year that they went there, because it's just something that the players get up for. Then you put a trophy on the line. Then you put the cash prize on the line, because I know that we look at these guys as like millionaires, and they, of course, make a great living. But, like, you don't think A.J. Mitchell could use the cash money prize? Sure, Shea's going to soon be paid $80 million a year, and it's not much for him. But it's a lot for A.J. Mitchell and Dylan Jones and some of these other guys on the roster. Even Wiggins is back on a bargain contract. Like, that stuff does matter for them. The trophy and the bragging rights, I think, will matter because, as you mentioned, in the first year, the Lakers won it, and the Lakers, a historic franchise, put up a banner for it. And LeBron, the best player of all time, raved about it. So they got that boost from the PR pub. So you add all that into a place where guys want to go off and have their best games of their career in that magical building. I think that's a great idea. I think that is a more feasible idea than Vegas, but maybe we're overreacting to the Vegas crowd, which is not good for any games except for the Lakers games last year. But perhaps they can kind of show out in this version of the NBA Cup, and maybe they just need to have an Elvis impersonator perform at halftime, and that can really get the juices flowing.
Yeah, I feel like you might know a guy in particular who could do that. But yeah, Vegas, hopefully it turns around. I mean, we both enjoy going to Summer League and sort of the environment around that, but there's a big build-up where every fan kind of knows ahead of time to go, whereas with the Cup, there you maybe have like 3, 4, 5 days before the finals, and I just don't think that's feasible for a lot of people to make plans to just uproot things and travel over there from whether it was like New Orleans was in there in the finals, Milwaukee and Indiana and the Lakers. The Lakers fans are obviously going to travel well, but for the rest of those, it's going to be pretty difficult. But hopefully things turn around in Vegas, but if not, I'd like to see the Madison Square Garden experiment at least tried once.
Yeah, and the quick turnaround, man, that's exactly why I think that teams should do something. And I don't know if there's any like laws or whatever, because I know giveaway laws are kind of weird, and like whenever you technically win a cash prize, it's all these taxes and stuff. But if there's no law against it, I would love to see teams just like say, hey, our 16 longest tenured season ticket holders, y'all are all going to Vegas for free to go watch this game, flight free, hotel free, game free. I think that'd be really cool and a way to just inject life into an otherwise what I project will be stale environment if it does not include the Lakers or maybe the Warriors, teams that kind of have strongholds in that market, in that region. So coming up, we're going to keep discussing the Thunder, but this time playing a game of what if. What if return dates for the Thunder injured players? want to tell you right now, but good friends over at FanDuel. Go check out FanDuel today to get started, because you can tackle the NFL season or get the NBA year started with a bang at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, and when you do, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So if you win your first $5 bet, boom, $150 in bonus bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place a live bet during a game, all in one place, but also bet before a game. You can bet on futures. You can do whatever you want at FanDuel.com. Go there right now and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You can go check out NBA lines. And again, you can bet on the NBA in game as well. But for tomorrow, the Thunder are 8.5-point favorites on the road in San Antonio. You can go check that line out at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast from, including on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Ryland_Styles. Check out Thunder on SI. Go follow Michael Martin on Twitter at Michael on Sports, and check out Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. Michael, NBA injury report came out today. It's Joe out along with the usual cast of Chet, Hartenstein, Jay Will, and Topic. Caruso's back, which is a great thing, and that's going to be awesome for the Thunder scalability because he's one of their better small ball fives along with Kenrich. But what do you make of how the Thunder can manage this stretch? Because for me, when I look at this schedule, this is a complete speculation and guess, but it sets up really nicely if things can fall out perfectly, and things rarely go perfect. But if you can get through the Spurs in Portland, you should just overwhelm with talent, much less anything else. Then you get 5 days off. Like, that's so rare in the NBA to get 5 days off before heading to a West Coast trip where you really need some reinforcements against Sabonis and against the Kings. What if the Thunder get Hartenstein back on November 25th against the Kings? What does that change anything for you in terms of like how successful this team can be? Because I think we can both admit, without anyone back for that West Coast trip, it's going to be pretty stressful to try to get a win.
Yeah, it's going to be huge if they can get him back, just in terms of having another live body, another rim protector, another screener, rebounder. And you mentioned those 5 days off. You can have a couple practice days in there so you can knock some of the rust off with the actual guys in the main rotation in action. So I think that could be really big. But Hartenstein has been very, very missed. Even in the games where Chet was playing against like the Nuggets the second go-around, you're like, man, this is why they signed Hartenstein's game like this. So I'm really excited to see him, but I think that he will have a massive impact. Maybe the numbers won't reflect it, but you'll feel his impact if you're watching the games.
Yeah, it would be huge. And I think that the Caruso part of it is big. And I think that the what if that is the best case scenario, because we always play best, worst, and most likely case scenario in this show. The best case scenario is everybody except for Chet and possibly Jay Will, let's say Chet and Jay Will, everybody but Chet and Jay Will are back on Monday. So the calf contusion from Joe heals up over this stretch. He's already out Tuesday. We'll see what that means for Wednesday. There's a chance that he has 6 days off before his next game for this calf contusion. Let's say that Joe's back, Hartenstein's back. They've already gotten Caruso back. If you can get that for Monday against the Kings, and this is all just a guess, but if you could, I'd still feel great about this team being a top 3 seed and being the favorites to get the 1 seed as long as they stay healthy the rest of the way.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all. I mean, we're seeing how well they played without a center, and they're playing J-Dub 6'6", who's played some center just sort of rotationally and just on switches, but not for extended periods as long as this. And having a guy like Shea, who's one of the best 5 players in the world, gives you a high baseline to succeed from. And having a guy like Hartenstein in the fold, Caruso, as you mentioned, I think it just stabilizes a lot of things and just raises the water level of expectations for this team in terms of what's the minimum for them to do, because they're going to out-talent a lot of these teams, as you mentioned, even while they wait for Jay Will and Chet to get back.
Is it safe to say that this is going to be the biggest stretch of the Thunder season to date? No matter if you have those guys back or not, Kings, Warriors, Lakers, Houston, who you did a good job of taking care of in your first go-around, but historically they've given you a little bit of trouble. Like, these games all on the road is going to be massive in terms of how they weather the storm if they're still without those guys, or how they can hit the ground running if those guys are back to kind of solidify, hey, I know we don't have Chet and he's a massive deal, but they're still going to be all right.
Yeah, these can be compacting losses if they go on the road and just sort of lose one after another against these teams who out-rebound them and just crash the boards and really pound them. But at the same time, if they come out of wins with a few of these, not even if they go undefeated, it could be a really galvanizing thing for the rest of the season for this team to sort of like get out from under that hump, because although they are 3-1 without a center so far, some of these games that they played, Rylan, I don't think, no offense to some of these teams, weren't the toughest matchups, whether it be like a team like the Pelicans and others where, or even the Suns, didn't seem like it was a very big deal to miss a big, but I think it's going to be very, very impactful and important against teams like the Lakers, Rockets, and the Warriors to an extent.
Yeah, I think that this stretch is going to be a lot of fun to cover, a lot of fun to watch how it all unfolds. It starts tonight with the NBA Cup against the Spurs in Portland, and those off days are big because you mentioned that you're gonna have the practices in between there, where you can afford to have punchier practices, as Mark Dignault puts it, to really stress test these guys coming back from injury, if they are going to come back from injury, and see kind of where they're at. You also have back-to-back blue dates in there where you could send some guys down theoretically and have them shake the rust off. I don't think that anyone on this injury report would go down to the blue to do that, but it could let you spend this time where maybe you send Dylan Jones and AJ Mitchell down there just to let them expand their game a little bit and play a role that is different from what they play in the NBA, and make sure that they're sharpening those tools. It's going to be fun to see what they end up doing this week, even with only 2 games on the docket, and we'll be back next week to kind of recap it all. But what are you most looking forward to this week, and what are you cooking up?
I'm looking forward to seeing if we finally get Hartenstein back. It seems like it's just sort of this delayed gratification that we're all sort of waiting for, even especially after we got teased in the preseason. So hopefully that happens. And as far as things I'm working on something with the drives and the free throw differential that the Thunder have been sort of banging their head against. And then also just showcasing and highlighting how good J-Dub has been as a small ball 5. So you can look forward to those, both those videos probably in the next couple weeks.
Go check out Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. Check out Thunder on SI. And, of course, thank you so much for listening to Locked On Thunder. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast from. And until tomorrow, whenever we recap the Spurs game, be good and be good to one another.